Since the start of the 2018-2019 fishing season, the UK has been gripped by the longest heat wave for decades, and the Norfolk Broads have really suffered. With no rainfall for over 9 weeks, combined with super hot, and I mean hot, temperatures, the Norfolk Broads has had a lot to deal with. The Broads started drying up as the water levels started decreasing, and the oxygen levels went through the floor. At its worst, the oxygen levels dropped to around 11%, which is the point where things start getting critical. Fish were becoming starved of oxygen and dying in many rivers and broads. The waterways were becoming toxic algae infested, and the entire ecosystem started to fail. During this time, the Broads Authority did what they could and took action by artificially increasing oxygen levels using specialist equipment. Fishing for perch in these conditions wasn't right. In fact, fishing for any species of fish in these conditions wasn't right. 3 days ago, the Norfolk Broads got the soaking it so desperately needed. Several hours of persistent rainfall topped up the water levels, increased the oxygen levels, and got everything going again. It was finally time to get the rods out and start my search for perch for the 2018-2019 season. For my first attempt at catching perch for the current season, I decided to head to the River Bure in South Walsham. Rather than messing around with natural baits and the possibility of catching roach, bream, or any other species swimming around the Norfolk Broads that isn't perch, lure fishing using the drop shot method seemed to be the way forward. As you can see on my walk to the first fishing spot, as shown in the time lapse of the entire fishing session towards the end of this clip, the first part of the River Bure that is around the public moorings was exceptionally busy. Given it is high season, this wasn't too surprising. Fortunately, there were a few spots further up the river, heading away from South Walsham, where anglers can get to the river but there is no key heading for the boats to moor up to, and these were the only option. For my first perch fishing session of the season, I was using a new outfit, and this was a Corum snapper drop shot rod coupled with a Shimano Hyperloop RB 1000 sized reel. This rod-reel combination is a well-balanced and light setup that works very well together. This setup just feels nice, which gives a lot of confidence, and this is essential when fishing. Despite the lack of takes, my first perch fishing session of the season was going well. The rod felt good and was flicking the lure where I wanted it. The reel was nice and smooth, and the lure was dancing around in the water as it should. My only complaint was the sun was low, fierce and in my face, but you can't have everything. Despite casting the lure into all fishy looking spots and trying a few different lures, the first spot didn't produce any perch, so I took a stroll a little further upriver to another spot. Once again, casting to the likely fish holding areas, changing lures, varying the action of the lure and the rate of retrieve, I couldn't attempt to take, so it was time for another move. Moving swims with minimal tackle isn't too much of a chore, and having the bare minimum amount of tackle is just one reason why I like drop shotting for perch. I wasn't in the mood for walking too far, so when the next couple of spots with no key heading were taken by tourists using rond anchors, I reluctantly backtracked and headed back for the last swim. Even though there were plenty of BA mooring spaces available, i.e. those spaces where the boats get the right of way and anglers have to move to let them in, you still get some selfish tourists taking the fishing spots, keeping the anglers off them. It does kind of piss me off. Once back in the second swim, I was just starting to get back into it when disaster struck, and the second section of my Corum snapper rod snapped clean in two. The rod didn't snap at the delicate quiver tip end, and neither did it snap at the spigot joint. Nope, the rod snapped across the actual blank, and it did so during normal use. I wasn't mistreating the rod, nor was I giving it any unnecessary hard. I was simply retrieving the lure when I got a knock. I felt the braid tighten and the rod starting to bend before an almighty crack, and the damn thing snapped clean in two. Given this was the Corum snapper's first outing, I have to say I'm not impressed, and just as I was starting to think the snapper rod is a great little rod and starting to like it. As I'm sure you've already guessed, the first perch fishing session of the season was prematurely cut short. Would I have caught a perch or two had I carried on? I have to say I have my doubts, and the recent downpours obviously weren't enough to get the perch in the Norfolk Broads feeding like I was hoping they would. My first perch fishing session of the season wasn't a success. In fact, I would go so far as to say my first perch fishing session of the season was a total disaster. I am now in a bit of a quandary and not sure what to do for the best. I obviously need a new drop shot fishing rod, and I'm going to head back to the supplier of my Coram and see if I can't get a refund. I don't want another Coram snapper rod, as I have no confidence in Coram rods. I guess it's back to the drawing board regarding the rod. I am having doubts over whether it's worth perch fishing the Norfolk Broads at the current time. I appreciate its high season, but the Broads do seem very busy this year, and the number of fishing spots are limited. Sure, there are fishing spots available, but I've never been one for just making do. The recent heatwave has also had a serious impact on the Norfolk Broads in more ways than one, and the reduction in oxygen, the death of thousands of fish, and the blue-green algae boom are just three things. It's going to take time for the Norfolk Broads ecosystem to recover from this, and if Mother Nature won't play ball, it's going to take several weeks. Consequently, I don't know if I should pack away the rods for the rest of the summer and enjoy the hot weather and then get back to it in the autumn, or whether to crack on and see how we go.